You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin the Cleric.
And me, Paul Brophy. And this evening, we're joined again by Patrick Murphy, who's the CEO of Ireland South and West Fisheries. He has been a very, very busy man over the last couple of weeks, and Patrick is here to give us an update on what's happening in the fishing industry and uh, what what lies ahead in 2025. And Patrick, you're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to yourself and Roisin, Paul, and it's great that you're continuing to show an interest in our island nation and what's going on around us. It's really appreciated, to be honest.
Absolutely, Patrick. The last time we spoke, um, Ireland was having big issues with Norway as regards them coming into Irish waters and catching more mackerel than they should be. Well, where are things at the moment?
Yeah, we coastal states arrangements. You see, when the UK left Europe, it too became a coastal state, and it changed all the historic catches. That's with Brexit and the TCA deal, and that's when we lost 25%. We're still suffering from that, Paul, because it goes on for 5 years. They've done a bilateral with the Faroes and Norway, and that allows Norway and the Faroes to catch. They're catching more fish than they're meant to catch than was previously agreed. And for whatever reason that they use, the scientists have now told everybody that the stock next year has to be cut overall by 22%. So, like, that's a huge cut. That's over one fifth, and Ireland are going to lose that. So we've literally lost in the last 5 years half of what mackerel we were catching for our country. Half. So there's very few businesses could cope with that. The scad mackerel got a zero catch advice. That meant that there was none of that to be caught either. So our pelagic fleet are struggling, but not just that. We gave a lot of whitefish stocks and prawns, our second most important fishery, to the UK to allow other countries to fish in the North Sea and around. So they also use fish from our waters. I've been just come back now from the week before. As you said, there's been a couple of busy weeks. So we were in Madrid at the start of December, and we were out there trying to see what we could do with the Norwegians. But rather than being adversarial with our European counterparts, we worked together and we put together a balanced transfer. In that now, they will get 89,000 tons of blue whiting in our waters. We get around 290 ton of cod and 2,500 tons of herring in their waters if it comes off. That's not a great swap for us, but that was the deal that was done in the past, and we have to honour it. But we have ensured that with the other countries that they're going to give us some swaps to allow us to go up there and catch the fishery. So at least there'll be some good news in it. And we've also parked the rest of the access. So if the Norwegians don't agree to allowing the European fleet in to catch a small amount of herring they have, then they will not get access for the other 140,000 tons of blue whiting in our waters. If they do allow them in, then they add that on to the 80,000. So they would be eligible again to catch around 120 to 130,000 tons of blue whiting in Irish waters. And we, as I said, get 2,500 ton of herring and 290 ton of cod in return. That's what Ireland gets.
And what's the feeling, Patrick? Is there a feeling that Norway's going to play a ball with, or could they
Well,
decide
no,
more?
I'm jealous of Norway, to be honest with you, even though with what they do, because if our negotiators were as good and as hard pressed, we wouldn't have a problem with fishing in our waters. Look, we give away 85% of all the fish in our own waters, 85%. And people might be thinking we're making these figures up. I don't. I get those figures from the Marine Institute, who gave them to the Department of Marine. They looked at all the catches and landings. I actually believe they're overestimating the 15%. I think we're getting less because we have to catch more of our fish in other waters than at home.
So
Uh,
we have to catch, the Irish fishermen have to catch more fish in other waters.
yeah,
Why can we not just catch the fish in our own waters?
Well, you see, it's like bringing cattle to the market. You bring them when they're in the best condition. So you wouldn't bring them in the wintertime, when they're starved or after calving. So it's the same for the fish. The fish are in better condition actually in the UK waters up off Shetland. So we try and catch them there. You see, Roisin, the only thing that saved the industry, in fairness, is the price. So the price was 500 euros a ton years ago. Now it's up to 2,000 a ton. So only for getting the higher price, they just wouldn't survive. So when people say, well, how are they surviving on half? Nobody can do that. Well, the price has gone up. But we don't know how long that price is going to stay up. And the biggest fear for me, Roisin, is that the scientists haven't come out with it. I've been saying this for years, and I think I've said it in this interview with yourselves. I'm really concerned over the biological nature of the stock, and science is very important. And look, I'm not going to bore people with this, but it's very simple. If the fish go below a certain level, right, the safe biological limit is here, and it drops to here. Well, it has to come back up to 95% of where it was. Otherwise, it's a zero catch advice. That means no fishing. So it doesn't mean the stocks have to disappear. It just means that they go down below what scientists reckon is a safe biomass, a safe size of the stock to regenerate itself going forward. That it doesn't go down and down and down and down. That you fish it. So we're really concerned that the scientists could come back in 2025 and say for 2026, new information has come to light. The fish has been overfished again for another year. Because the 22% is only if everybody fishes at what they say you should fish at. But they're not doing that. They're fishing around 40% more than what we should be fishing at. The other countries are. I know this
What
sounds
is our
crazy.
MEPs doing? What is our MEPs saying or doing? What are they up to?
Well, I must say now the new sitting of the Parliament has the likes of Ciarán Mullooly and Maria Walsh. The Fianna Fáil party has been led by Billy Kelleher, so he brought in the rest of his colleagues, the four of them, to speak there and put out social media posts. The poorest ones that are representing us are the ones in the Leinster constituency in Dublin. We haven't heard a word from any of them. So I would like to hear more from the football men, what you call them? I'm after forgetting their names.
Oh, Aidan or Reardon.
Oh, you wouldn't hear a word from him. No, he wouldn't have a clue about fishing, and they haven't come to talk to us either. To be honest, I don't understand some political parties. They shock me. We're an island nation, and we don't seem to have much of an interest from our political parties in fisheries around the coastline. Every other country, politicians in other countries have a greater interest. I'll come back to what happened this week in Brussels because I don't want to stay on too long, lads. So I'm just back from Brussels. So at the Brussels, it's the December Council of Ministers. And we meet with our colleagues again from all over Europe, and we pass information and we try and move things along and try and nudge our governments in the right direction that we can all get some sort of a deal. And would you believe it, in the Mediterranean, the Commission, Mediterranean side now, and Italy over in the Mediterranean to the coast of Spain and France, wanted to reduce the fishing effort. That's how they control their fishing number of days from 130, that's what they had, so every second day more or less go fishing, down to 27, which would be a day a fortnight. Can you imagine? So they believe their stocks are in such bad shape that that's what they want to do to the industry over there. So there was a threat put out that if 35% of the countries and the population would go against this, they'd stop all of the fishing agreements going forward. But you didn't hear anything about that, of course. All you heard about was the farmers and the Mercury deal. And I told you this years ago that this was a done deal from my time in Brussels and during the campaign, and I kept pointing it out that it would be too late to go back. They should have done it before the election. They should have made a clear manifesto. Ireland should have been linking out before, the horse is bolted, the milk is spilt. And now, just like the derogation on nitrates, they're jumping up and down and running around the place going, oh, we're going to stop this. It would be virtually impossible. The only way they're going to stop this is if the countries producing cars and vehicles decide, it's not important for their manufacturing industries. So they'll say no. Like, who are they cutting? You have Fiat and all the car companies in Italy. You have the French, you have Peugeot, you have Renault, and then go through the names in Germany with from Porsche to Volkswagen and Opel, and these people their business has been cut 70%. So they need another market. And I don't know if they're going to get in with electric cars, but this is the reality in Europe. And we get sold as a commodity. And I warned about this. I told the farmers, I warned and warned in my campaign. I said, you're next. I've heard it. I can see it. And now they're fighting for survival. I wish them luck, to be honest with you. I have a small farm here myself. But they're up against it. Oh, by God, are they up against it? It would actually have been easier to get more countries to block the fishing regulations than it is for the Maersk here. I can't see how they're going to stop this. And look, it'll probably boil down to more subsidies, a bigger cap for the countries here because they really are going to be up against it. Like from my knowledge of what I know is what's agreed. And so fishing, our rural communities are being drained of their young people because they're not allowed to build there. The jobs are being shoved into the cities. They're leaving our country in droves. And now any hope of keeping people working in the area and sustaining other communities now is really under threat. And I'm not going to complain about the politics. People are right to vote for who they want to vote, and they did vote back in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in way bigger numbers. Like I said it at the locals, I said it to you. The people have spoken, and I could see it happening again, and they want to go with these groupings. And I'm all for democracy, so I don't like the result, but we have to work with them, and hopefully they will listen and take in a few maybe right-minded independents, and hopefully they will have an influence to the good rather to the detriment.
And Patrick, so is there any fishing now? Is there any fishing in our waters? No, I'm thinking as a consumer, we met you a year ago when we went down to cover a local candidate here in a very rural little village in Castlecoma in North Kilkenny, and we went in and I know, Paul and I were just shocked. We were just so, when we heard your talk on the fisheries, and that was a year ago in October, was it?
Yeah, so look, I'll call it out like this, and that people understand, because I've given this notes out, Roisin, and this is what people need to understand. Ireland has the richest fishing grounds in Europe, without question, right? We have the continental shelf. The fish come to spawn here and grow, and we have juveniles, and they grow big, and we have 70 different species in our waters.
Yeah.
We have bluefin tuna. They're worth hundreds of thousands if they're handled correctly coming into our waters. We're not allowed to catch them. In 2020, we were told that England was definitely leaving, and they were taking roughly 15% on paper of our fish. They blocked us off different areas, but in actual real fish, not paper fish, fish that we were catching, it turned out that it was evaluated that we gave 40%. We paid in reality 40% of the payment, right? This year now, again, we're going to lose a fifth of both our hake, our haddock, and our mackerel, and our nephrops in certain areas, especially where I come from in the southwest coast. That's a fifth of our earnings again gone, and on top of the storms and everything that's happening, it's making it virtually impossible for fishermen to make a living. Before, people were looking to buy 1 or 2 boats or 3 boats and build their businesses and create a family dynasty, and keep it in the family. They're praying now that they can hold on to one. We've gone from 400 boats to 150. I keep repeating this because it's a shocking figure that people should understand. We give away 85% of our fish, and we're giving more away. That's not going to stop. And if there was another decommissioning scheme tomorrow morning, I believe we'd lose another 40. I believe 40 people, families would get out because they can't see a living there, not because the fish aren't there. The fish are there. So we have to decide as a country, as an island nation, do we keep getting out of the way for other countries to come in and fish our waters? And that's the question. That it's no politician, whatever they say about helping fishermen. We've tipped the balance, we've tipped the scales now, and it's something drastic we need to do. And I know I would be hung for saying this in Europe because I have to negotiate with my colleagues in Europe. We have to trade fish, and I'll go into that again afterwards.
But
I think
Patrick,
we
where
have
are
to
we buying
close
our
the door.
fish from? So, sorry to interrupt you, but I think before we go on anywhere, so where are we buying our fish from when we go to the supermarket and I'll go out for a meal? Where is that fish on our plate coming from when our Irish fishing quotas are so low?
Would you believe it? You're supporting Russia and a lot of it. People are buying
Russia.
cod. Russia, yeah, yeah. So Russia have deals with the Faroe Islands and the Norwegians, the people that are increasing the mackerel, and they do trade deals, and they catch the fish and they sell it through the Faroes into the European Union, a lot of it. Um, Whereas the Norwegians that are here catching the fish, they take it from us and sell it. The Spanish boats, they don't even go home. They put it into a truck and they send it to the Dublin market.
So we're
You
buying
know,
it back from the foreign, by the
oh yeah,
international
yeah, all
border.
the
So we're
time.
not. So they're
Not a
fishing
dream.
fish from our waters, and we, as a nation, and as consumers and shoppers, we are buying our own fish back from international fishermen and
Yeah, but
countries.
Roisin, I know you're shocked, but 99% of the vegetables that we consume in this country
Yeah,
are imported. Like, and we're a farming nation with green soil everywhere, all around us. Like, it's madness what's
it's
going on. Look,
absolutely crazy.
we import peat from other countries.
Yeah.
There's a ship that came in the other day with 40,000 tons of wood to go burning in the electric plant. Like this is what's happening. And I know people are turning a blind eye to it. They're saying, sure, it doesn't affect me. It does affect you. Of course, it affects you. And yes, we're in a time of plenty now because we have the corporation taxes and stuff like that, and that's hiding it. And we have a big building boom that people don't want to talk about. Like Roisin, 50,000 for a house would have bought a house when I was a kid. For my uncle,
Yeah,
now he's
me too.
28. 50,000.
I
It's now
built
400.
a house in the middle of the country. It has 17 rooms, 27 windows, and 2,500 slates on for 13. That was the mortgage, 39,000, and I think the builder made it for about 28. So that was in 1996, and look at it now. And as you said, like my son had to buy an old cottage in the middle of the country on his salary. But the fish, so the fish, you think we've spoke about this before, but I think it's really important to remind the viewers and the consumers and the citizens of Ireland. Like our coastal communities and also our coastal economic communities and the skill of fishing is all disappearing.
Yeah, yeah, sure. 80% of the crews that we have now are coming from outside of Europe. They're not even in Europe. It's not a very attractive industry for young people to go in. It's not attractive for the sons of the people that own the boats to go in, our daughters. Like, people have to understand that what we're saying is not scaremongering. This
No,
is reality. Remember the crash for our economy and the way that the building crashed. We're looking at the same
2008,
thing
yeah.
happening in rural Ireland. And it won't happen slowly. It'll just go overnight. And people will go, what happened? We had people talking at the crash. Did anybody see it coming? We're preaching this. But the good news is, Roisin, is that they have listened to us, the political parties, in the run up to the elections from the lobbying that we did, like, and we did a lot of it. And like we traveled the country. And I think my running, I think, shone a light on the industry. I think they
Yes.
can't ignore it anymore. I would have liked to had a bigger light if the media covered me more. But look, we did. I think it was enough to shake up the political parties because they added it to all their manifestos. Now, will it be part of the program for government? I hope so. I hope they'll be honouring their word again, that they'll put in a junior minister, super junior minister in for fisheries. If they don't, then they won't have a fishery in 5 years' time because people will get out of the industry. They just can't. The legislation that's coming will not allow fishermen to fish. It's I was in Brussels, and in fairness, you love this one. Luke Ming Flanagan asked us to come out, and he brought the control agency, the European Control for Fisheries, that's ran by Susan Steele, an Irish girl. He got two of them, their lads. I won't mention their names now. To come into the room and talk to us. And what I learned, and I met this 8 years, was astonishing. Now I have to write it up. I have to put it together because no sooner had I met them that I was rushing back again from Brussels to go back. So I was Madrid, Brussels, back home for a couple of days, back out to Brussels again, and back home today. So it takes a while to put everything together because you're just meeting people from all over. It's very intense, and not just me. No, this is for all the industry and our officials as well too. There's not a lot of sleep involved when you're out there. Like it's and people might see you sitting down inside in a bar or a restaurant, but you're working. You're not just you're still networking. You're still working. You're still trashing out deals. You're still negotiating. And even at that now tomorrow I have to tidy up those things. But yeah, so the good news is that there is a possibility that the two main parties now will honour their pledge before they went in. And I think the MEPs are aware that what we've said to them, because they heard it from everybody, Roshi.
Yeah.
We were all in the room together, so there was nobody saying, no, we're not listening to this. But Luke, yeah, he brought out the lads, and no, it was a quick meeting because I had to rush home for a flight. We were out there for 4 days, and we had to negotiate again the coastal states, and so it was on the last day. And I did apologize to him, but I had to catch my flight because I was coming home for 2 days. Literally had to go home, wash the clothes, and take out a new set, and tidy up a couple of things at home and back out again. So I couldn't miss the flight because I'd be stuck there. I'd be going to a laundrette in Brussels and staying there for the fortnight.
So what are you expecting then to happen in 20? So the election, so you running, and that's how we met you running as candidate. That's how we've been found out, and we were smacked, and that's why we've continued this on, because we were completely shocked. And I never thought about fisheries before. So we had the local and European elections, so that put floodlights on the Irish Irish fishery crisis, and then we had the general election. So and now the two main parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, are talking about it.
Yeah, they have. So but they have to do more than talk now.
Yeah.
They have to sit down with us and they have to get real about this. And I know they don't want to upset Europe, but there will be nothing there for everybody on the trajectory that we're going. Because with climate change, and so what happened in Europe 40 years ago was they fished it out. They fished out their own shorelines. That's why they came to Ireland. That's why they went to Africa. That's why they like not only does the Chinese fleet go all over the world, so does the European fleet, the Spanish especially. They go all over the place. So do the Dutch. They're up as far as the Arctic, and they go down into the Indian Ocean, for God's sake. These are nomadic fleets now that fish the oceans of the world, and so they came to Ireland. But the problem is my personal view, is that there's too much effort. I warned about this during Brexit. Barnier took the paperwork that I prepared and brought it to the UK. But even though we prevented a lot of it coming in, we didn't prevent all of it. So there has been an increase in Irish waters to catch more fish. So people will say, well, why didn't they do it before? They didn't do it before because they were able to fish closer to home in UK waters. But when they lost maybe 15 or 20% in UK waters of access, they came and replaced that in Ireland. But there would be no point in coming for 15 or 20%. They came for 40 or 50. So they've increased their efforts by 40 or 50%. And that's tipped the scales. And now we're seeing the result of that year in, year out with more cuts to quota. as I said, people say, well, the Irish are overfishing. Well, if the Irish were overfishing, we're after getting rid of a quarter of our fleet in the past couple of years. So we've reduced our effort just by taking out the fishing boats by a quarter. The problem is that the stocks now are cut a quarter again. So everything that we balanced and fixed is undone again with the cut in the scientific advice. And when people say to me, well, explain it, it's very simple. The reason why the stocks are low is because more fish are being caught. We catch 15% of the fish, others catch 85% of the fish. We are not the ones driving down the stocks. Others are driving down the stocks. And as a result, we're going out of business. So in our waters, because we're giving away so much, we're not keeping enough to keep ourselves alive. And we're going out of business. And if that doesn't change, we will go out of business. And eventually there will be no business, because in the current trajectory, there'll be no business for anybody else. And if people think I'm talking nonsense, listen back to what I've said here. In the Mediterranean, because they've fished the stocks by so much in all the countries down there, they want to reduce the fishing effort from 365 days a year to 27. That's what they want. Now, when I was talking to my Spanish colleagues and the French, this will affect 3,000 boats in the Mediterranean. Okay? Remember what I said. We've 150 left, but this will affect 3,000 boats in the Mediterranean. So that'll tell you about the effort. And there's more effort by foreign boats in our waters than ourselves, and we are being put out of business. So anybody watching this is the truth. And the stats and the statistics and the evidence are all pointing to that. Now, climate change is having an effect. It really and truly is. It's changing fishing patterns. It's changing the movement of fish. Some fish are benefiting, others are not. It's like plants in your field. Some will thrive in sunny weather, some will want shade, some will want wet ground, some will want dry. It's no different in the sea.
But we can't blame climate change on what is happening in that with our quotas.
No, but it is a contributing factor, and seals are a
But we
contributing factor.
can't complain. We can't blame that though.
No, not on its own.
No.
No, but it is a contributing factor. There, I will say, like, it's not just the other boats coming in. There's too many seals. The population is uncontrolled. They were controlled before by people fishing. A lot of them died. They got caught in nets and stuff like that. They weren't targeted, but they swam into the nets themselves and they drowned. So you shoot the net,
Oh,
the seal went in after them. But seals are eating their own young now. They're eating birds. They're eating all manner of things. They attack the dog. So these animals are hungry. They might look cute and cuddly. So does a lion. But you wouldn't put your hand into its mouth, like, you know. So, like, animals are animals. And, you know, this is what we're up against, is that we seem to be the bad animals. We seem to be the bad guys. And it's the same as I always say about the deer in the Phoenix Park where our president is. They issue an order and the fellas come in and start shooting the deer, like, you know. So, like, nature is nature, and it has to be controlled. It has to be managed, you know.
that's why I'm not a farmer, because I just couldn't shoot them. I'd be giving them all names.
But this is it, yeah, and like there's nothing wrong with that. We named our animals as well too. No, we didn't kill our own, but we sold them on, like, you know. But it's the business. But
But
they're
Patrick, where
well
do you
looked
see this
after.
going in January?
Say again.
Where do you see the fishing industry, the crisis, the quotas, and the negotiations with our MEPs? Where do you see that now going in January? We're coming up to Christmas, so very little is going to be done. But January 2025, what do you see happening? What do you want to see happening, and what do you want to happen coming back to us next year? And what do you think will be the reality of it all?
Well, what's happening will happen now in 2025. So what quotas we have. So my job and my colleagues' job is to reach out to our European colleagues who have so much fish and the UK that they can't catch theirs. We keep saying this. So what we do is we swap fish that they can catch, that we have, and we get a higher ratio back from them. So, like, if I was in business now doing this for myself, I'd be a very wealthy individual because even at the end of this year now, we've swapped out maybe 500,000 worth of fish, and we're going to get back 2.5 million. So that's how we're surviving, Roisin. The industry ourselves are doing everything that we can in the marketplace, in our trade deals, because the governments aren't allowed to do that. They have to stick to the like for like. You give 1,000 worth of fish, I give you 1,000 worth of fish. We have to do it in the private sector to negotiate, but we put it through the governments. Like I've had the English government tell the Irish government that the deal I've done is too good, and they've refused it. That they reckon we're getting too much fish, so I was too good at my job. But that's what I see happening in the new year. We have to use what we have. We can waste nothing. We have to get better with technical measures and make sure we catch the right fish and the bigger fish at the right price. And that's the only way we're going to survive because we'll change nothing else. The only way we're going to change is if our government decide that they want to truly save our fishing industry, and they will have to go to Europe and they will have to really and truly look for a proper review of the common fishery policy under the principles that I said it's there. But that will take some going. It's not something small. Our government would really be putting their neck in the chopping block for that.
And that would have to go go to Europe through our MEPs.
Yeah, starting in our MEPs, it would take our Taoiseach to go over there and with the heads of state, our minister behind them and our minister for foreign affairs. I've been saying this before. That's one way. The other way then is the way I believe that there is an avenue, and that is to challenge the legality of the common fishery policy, that it's failing. So, regardless of their efforts, for Ireland, Inc., the common fishery policy is failing us. And what we've done is we've given the management of our stocks to the European Union. We didn't give them away, and I keep reiterating this. And the UK proved that. When they left, they were entitled to take back all the fish that they were giving everybody
Yeah.
else. We got caught because the UK was fishing in our waters, right? We were fishing in mutual waters, but we didn't fish in the North Sea. All the rest of Europe fished in the North Sea. So we paid the price for them to continue to fish in the North Sea. They paid some as well, but they had so much extra fish it didn't hurt them. They had plenty. You know, it's like the story we heard in religion, you know, where the old woman goes in and she puts her coppers into the poor box, and the rich man goes up and he pulls out the wallet and he fires notes in. And Jesus said, well, it was easier for him to do that than the woman to give the coppers. That's where we are now. We are
And
the
really, Patrick, the consumers really, but we're complaining about the price, the cost of living, and the price of fish. I can't afford to eat a lot of fish. It's a luxury for me to eat fish. So the consumers, the ordinary Joe Soap and Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Riley, Mrs. Murphy, need to know, and Mr. Murphy, Mr. Riley, and Mr. Walsh, and I'm trying to think of all the different names, need to know why the cost of buying a piece of fish, and why we're probably not eating fish on Fridays or eating fish as often, is because it's too expensive. So we need to know why it's too expensive. And I don't think the Irish public are aware of this.
Yeah, but Roisin, they're ignoring that we import the vegetables. They're more expensive, right?
Yeah.
We import flour to make our bread. That's why our bread is expensive. Like a loaf of bread in Ireland is way more dear than what it is in the
Yeah.
continent, like, you know. So we're importing foodstuffs already. Sugar, for another example, and so when we can't produce or catch our own, sure, the price goes up. And when people complain about the price of living, so you can imagine, like, if it happened with potatoes or with anything else that we were told we couldn't grow, beef, All of this is going to happen to us if we're not allowed to produce our own. But we're an island nation.
Yeah, that's
So
like
we
we're
have
an
to
island.
import everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can't bring it in by truck unless it comes across in the ferry. Like, you're flying it in or you're bringing it in by boat. Like, that's
we're an
fine.
island and we can't afford to even eat our own fish, and we
Yes.
can't even catch our own fish. And it's like, if okay, I'm going to use these words. It's my own analogy of it, where I can sort of break it down. We're an island. We're an island with the most richest sea waters and fish in the world, if not, right? And yet we only have 15% of the quota, and all the other nationalities, Russia, Norway, Europe, Spain, and all the other countries, and France, and all the other, and Belgium, I think you said at one time, and correct me if I'm
Yeah,
wrong,
Portugal, yeah.
yeah, and Portugal, all come into
Yeah.
the Irish seas, who are allowed to take our fish and catch far more fish than what we're allowed to catch, and our coastal economies have dried up. Our coastal fishermen and communities are all disappearing, and our fishing skills are disappearing with families not going through the generations. So our MEPs, what are they going to do now in 2025? And IT shock.
You see, what if I was the difference between me and those MEPs, right? I'm not going to criticize them, is
No.
that I would have went out there and I would have looked at the legislation and I would have challenged it. They're not going to do that, Roisin, because they
Why?
can't, because they wouldn't be allowed to do it. They're not going to challenge the common fishery policy in the way that I would do it, because I
Who
think
can do it? Who can challenge it?
well, it would at this stage now. It'll take the Taoiseach. Like he'll either have to go to the heads of state and show what we showed them. Like so, they have all this information. We did it on the task force. We showed how bad things were. Like we were shocked with BIM to come out with the report that they did because the glossy part of it and the front of it showed, oh, sure, the fishermen are only down 2%. If we're only down 2% in what we were allowed to catch or whatever, our earnings, right? How did we lose 82% in profitability? You can't have that in a document. So who told them to come out with a report like that? That told lies, as far as I'm concerned. It was the same with the SFPA, and as I said to you, I learned a lot from that meeting. But I can't divulge it yet because I must give it to my directors and stuff first
Mm.
and ask them where I can go with it. You see, I would call this, Roisin, is that our fishermen are under fierce threat. They're under the gun, right? They're always in fear because you have I call them the black and tans. The way that they're acting is the black and tans. They're coming on board our boats and they're harassing our fishermen over small things and margin of tolerance and everything else. And they're not
Who
doing
do you call the Black and Tan specifically? Sorry,
our control agencies.
and
And
who
and
are the
I,
control agencies?
the Sea Fishery Protection Agency, and
And who are
not the
they?
individuals, the organization themselves.
And who is that organization?
Well, they've complete autonomy from our minister and from our government. They are
Are
a
they
law
Irish or
themselves.
are they
Yeah, Irish.
international
Yeah,
body?
yeah, yeah. Sea Fishery Protection Agency. Yeah, yeah.
So
So
what
like,
we need then is the next Taoiseach, which we presume is Micheál Martin, a Cork man,
yeah.
to actually
I'd be amazed if he did it because he signed in the legislation that crucifies fishermen and takes the rights of them off. Like we were in a
holy
meeting.
mother. Is there anyone who can help? Who will, do you think,
It's
be
the only
willing to
one
help?
that'll help. If the Irish people decide that they want to keep a fishing industry, they'll have to start speaking up. They'll have to do what you're doing. They'll have to speak up because, and whether they want it or not, I know people aren't interested in fishing. I'm not foolish. I know it doesn't affect them. I know that they'll hum and haw. I seen in the election themselves. Like I know I didn't get out the right message because I didn't have the time. First of all, I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the backing that I expected to have, and I certainly didn't have the media on my side. So I was screaming in the wilderness. I know that if people really understood that this is their own people, their own resources, like if it's like I said, what happened, I have to draw a parallel to what happened when the English invaded our country. They took the rights of our people off them. They did it by force. There's the only difference between what's happened back then and happened now. It's being done by the pen. It's being done by people in rooms signing it away and giving it away and making deals to give it away. And they are doing it and they're allowing it to happen. And they're going to lose something that was fought very hard for after we got back our independence. And that's why we're in the mess we're in. We weren't established like the other fleets in Europe. Our population weren't fish eaters. The amount per kilo that we were eating, we were probably eating more out foreign than we were eating at home, you know? And that has to change. So people watching this, they have to decide. They have to really decide and just say, well, this is something that should interest me. Do I want, as an island nation, to have a fishing fleet? And I'm not joking. I'm telling you the truth. Like that's
Yeah,
where it's come to now. And some fishermen will say, "Look, I'm doing okay. I'm surviving." Yeah, for the time being. Some are the bigger boats and the boats that are doing well, but even the inshore boats. I was an inshore fisherman. Like, and if you didn't make enough, you'd stop fishing. You'd go working on land, or you do something else, a bit of farming, or you go building. So why aren't they doing that? Is the jobs not there? We're on 100% employment. So something's awry
yeah.
in our coastal communities. And I'm surprised again at the voting strategies that people did. That's their choice. But I'm really afraid that if we can't get the message out as representatives of the fishing industry, we won't be there to represent. One of the lads that's from the co-ops actually said at one of the meetings, he said, if things don't change, this isn't just me, he said, so the department were there, the SFPA were there, and BIM were in the room, right? And they said, you just won't have us the next 5 years' time. You'll be talking to yourselves. We won't be here. That's what he said. Like, that was some statement for somebody else besides me. you know?
Well,
It's
Patrick, what we've done is we've contacted two MEPs today, yesterday and today. We're going to contact more MEPs, and we're also going to contact here in Kilkenny, our Carlow Kilkenny county councillors and our newly elected TDs, and as many MEPs as possible to actually get them to invite them to come on here and talk about the Irish fishery crisis and maybe even a public event here in Kilkenny. Because we need to, even though we are a rural inland constituency, we still, in Super Value over across the way from me, they have a fish section. But it's but we women and men are complaining because we can't afford to buy fish, and we need to get the general public build awareness, put the floodlights, and as I said in the email today, we need to get the lighthouses and put that beam of light on the Irish fishery crisis, because we're going to have no fish left, and it's going to affect our health.
yeah, well, this is it. Like, when people and money too. Right, that we're going to need money for infrastructure. We're spending billions, like healthcare and everything else. That everything has been ramped up, and we're going to need resources, and this is a renewable resource. If we looked after this resource, we do with it what other countries are doing with it, and we'd support our country and our people. And money generates money, and wealth generates wealth.
Yeah.
But all a fisherman does is goes out and picks up that wealth and
Yeah.
manages it and brings it in ashore, and he passes it on to the next person, and the next person passes it on until we get to eat it and enjoy it. But
Yeah.
we won't have the fishermen. And I know that people looking at this will say, Asher, he's talking nonsense. We've heard this so many times, but it's getting worse. The figures are
Yeah.
worse. I can show you the figures. And if people are saying, well, how are you surviving? They're not. We're at the crisis point now, and I've said this before. So you have people that have made money in the past, and their boats are worth a lot of money, and people made and did well in fishing, right? There's no denying that, and they built it up. But all their resources now to stay in it are being drained. It's like the businesses that you see around now that had warehouse debt. They're closing down. They can't make enough and cover the debts that they owe. So they're just uh, solidifying their businesses. They're selling off their stuff and they're moving on. They're gone. Like, but each one of those businesses could have 5 people working in your local community. People want to remember what happened during austerity. Like,
Yeah.
we just shut the economy down, and this could happen again. And there are so many people depending on our economy now that wasn't there before. Like, there was so many people on the dole, seeing people down lines down the street. It's amazing to think that we've forgotten that, and that, you know, why even risk going there again when you have a natural resource around your shoreline? You at least you say, well, that's sorted. We
Yeah.
know we're going to have that every year. We're going to be guaranteed looking after that, that at least we'll have that income. Same with the farming community. They will have the cows, they will have the calves, they will milk the cows, they will produce the milk, they will plant the fields, we'll have the potatoes, we'll have the cereals. At least we'll have that. It's in our control.
Mhm.
That is self-sufficient. That is a sustainable economy. You can build on that. All the rest then is plus. If Trump, right, and I know we like him, Roisin, but if
I like
he
him.
puts
If I was in
America
America,
first,
I'd be voting Trump. I'm
and
a MAGA woman.
but if he brings back the corporate tax out of our coffers, we are in trouble. And imagine if we turned and left, say, right, we have the fishermen and the farmers. They go, oh no, we don't. You got rid of them. What are we going to do? Like, just keep exporting our people, or yeah, like we have a population of 7 million, and people are saying that's very small. It is for the wealth that we should be creating in our own
Mm.
country. And I don't get it. These people come from countries maybe even landlocked that have a bigger fleet than we have now fishing off our
And
shoreline.
that's what I can't understand. And I think that is something, they talk about, and it's something that we were talking to our American correspondent, Adam DeVito, and he was saying, people over here, and even we were talking to our TE uh, journalists during the general election, and I was bringing up about the fisheries. And she said, Trump will bring in, President elect Donald J. Trump will bring in trade war. And I went, no. I said, that is media misinformation and propaganda. What he's bringing in trade negotiations. And that is what people are getting mixed up. They're getting into all this. It's trade negotiations, and he's not only putting on tariffs on countries that are not cooperating. But what Ireland need to do, and what we have to do, is make sure that our Taoiseach goes over and he negotiates for the Irish people, for our Irish coastal communities and our fishermen, because that will affect our health. We need fish for our health and well-being. And we're talking about fish at Christmas, and Jesus was a fisherman. I know he was a carpenter, but you know what? He was also with the fishermen. So I just think we're going to continue on with this as we have, and we gave our word to you in October 23, the day we met you, that night we met you, and we have a video here in our archives if people want to have a look on the very night that we met Patrick Murphy. And we're going to keep this going, and we're going to start even bringing on more politicians, MEPs, county councillors, TDs, and MEPs, and even senators as well, to actually now, going forward next year, to actually come on and talk about this. And if they refuse to come on, we're going to call them out. If they refuse to come on and talk about it, we'll call them out. That's not fake news, or it is factual information. If they're invited on and they refuse to come on, we have no choice but transparency to say they refuse to come on.
Yeah, look, as I said, we could talk about this all night, Roisin. It's you're as emotional now and as pent up as I am, because it doesn't make sense.
It's the
Because look,
principle. It's the
yeah,
principle.
it's our resource. Like, we're an island nation. We're surrounded by water, the richest water in Europe at the moment. We wouldn't match the UK now, but they're not in Europe. They're not one of the member states.
Well, you
Not
talked about
counting them.
President Trump. Maybe if we had President Trump over here in Ireland, he would make our fisheries great again.
Well, he wouldn't do any harm to him anyway, like the rest of them. But I think we'll have to be closing the borders on the other fleets for a while and recover the stocks and then let them back in again. But only if ours comes first. Only if we can sustain our own people first. And I
Right.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, and it's about looking after. We have the most beautiful coastal sceneries and coastal villages and fishing villages and fishing ports. That should be capitalized on. And
Yeah,
that they should be like the most beautiful tourist attractions with our fishermen and fisheries and fishing boats and
yeah. As I
eating the
say,
fish.
I would love to see us replicate something like happens in Vigo in Galicia and Spain. There is 250,000 people living there, and fisheries is the main business and shipbuilding. And then tourism buffers that city to 1 million people. So they can imagine. Now, we couldn't do that here in Ireland, but like it just shows that's it. The tourists and
Beautiful.
everybody else come in. So they have the swell then for the summer to help them and the fishing to keep them going and attract people in and during the summer. And we could do the same here. I know we could.
Well, I tell you something. We need a miracle. And we need a miracle. It's Christmas time, and Jesus turned the water into the wine. Jesus turned more miracles than anything else, and we need to make our fishing industry great again. And Paul and I will definitely, we give you our word. We're going to help put probably don't. There again, what else did we get rid of? Our lighthouses. So we're going to, metaphorically speaking, try and be a lighthouse and putting the beams of light onto the fishing industry going forward again in 2025.
Yeah,
Very
before
good
they go
initiative.
out.
And Patrick Murphy, it's gone, must be gone 10 o'clock here on
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna.
night. So we'll let you go, and thank you for taking the time to come on and talk to us. We really do appreciate it, don't we, Paul?
Anytime,
Yeah,
Roisin.
thanks
Anytime.
as always, Patrick. It's
Yeah, thanks,
been
Paul. Yeah.
an education as always chatting with you.
Yeah, and look, I know we go into expanding, but like, sure, look, we'll do it again in a couple of days if you want to, and I'll just give you the when I got through the figures and stuff like that.
Mm.
So
Do.
and we do it
Yeah, that'd be
quicker.
brilliant.
I'll just give you an update of some of the stocks and stuff like that. All right,
That would be
Brilliant.
lovely, Patrick. Thank you so much
Thank you,
indeed.
Patrick.
I'll let
Very
you
much
go, lads.
appreciate it. On.
Lovely talking
Yeah.
to you. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.